Can you see a keynote, Milola?
Yes, I can. Yes, I
All
can.
right, cool.
Okay.
All
Hello,
right.
everyone. Welcome to today's lunchtime masterclass webinar. Today we have Nick with us. He's going to be teaching on how to get your teams to work to the best of their ability. So please stay tuned, and when you come in, please mute your mic. And if you have questions, send it to the group chat to your right of the screen, or you can send me an email and I'll post the questions when he's done with his lesson. So over to you now, Nick.
Thanks, Demilola. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick. I'm CTO at a company called Sabre. So I'll just give you a brief history about me and how I got here. So I am a computer engineer. I studied computer engineering at Imperial, which is where I met Tolu, a good friend, who is the founder of Cousant. Yeah, a bit similar to kind of a lot of people like Tolu and Imperial graduates. I ended up working in the UK in the financial services, doing kind of financial services tech in big banks from Goldman Sachs to Barclays Capital, etc. So I did that for the first half of my career. Eventually had enough of the corporate life, decided to take a year out, see the world. And I ended up sailing for a year, actually, sailing around the world. And that is where I sort of started to appreciate more and more just how important teams are for everything we do, both at work and out of work. So so this is a picture of me sailing around the world. As you can see, it's a big boat with loads of people trying to make it go. Like I said, the big lesson there was that to make a boat go fast and for a group of people to cross an ocean, there's probably 20% to do with sailing and sailing skill, and probably 80% with how well that team works together. And I think this is true in most workplaces as well. So that's why today I'm not talking about any tech things. I'm not talking about hardcore skills like, I don't know, data science or React or JavaScript. I'm just going to talk about how well teams work together. So the company I work at, it's a small startup. It's called Sabre. And our mission is to have better teams. And what we do is we make tech to radically improve the way teams work together. So how do we do that? Well, we work with human team coaches. So we work with a lot of world's experts on team coaching and especially those that work at a high executive level. So what often happens, you will find in big companies, is that top management teams often do get a human coach to work with them, a bit like any sports team does. However, a lot of the other teams don't get the same benefit. We also go and read a lot of the books on teamwork. So stuff that, for example, Google write when they do research on what makes great teams, to kind of like what do Army generals from the US Army say is good for teamwork these days. So we combine the two and kind of try and have a hard job of making up, distilling that into something that's practical for people to use as a digital product. So that's what we do at Sabre. So our clients are kind of big companies, but as you can see, they're quite varied. So anyone from Unilever to NatWest. And the reason for that is a lot of companies are moving to a model where they operate as a network of teams. So that is why it's kind of what we do is applicable to any kind of industry. However, it's a long journey. You will find that, and we find that there is no data on teamwork. So all of the kind of cool, clever teamworking stuff happens in human coaches' heads. So they would come into a team and try and figure out what are the personalities, what is the industry, what are the challenges they have, and then try work with the team to be better. And for that reason, it's very hard to make a very smart, AI digital coach. So our strategy is that right now we have some smart digital tools that help teams be better. They're not true AI, but through the process, we're collecting a lot of data on what types of things make each type of team better. So, for example, if you work, in a tech product team and there's different personalities and different ages, and you work in a particular industry, and you try different things through the use of our tool, we can kind of then tell which teams end up better than others, and through that, we can recommend things more smartly in the future. So that's what we do in a nutshell. But then, yeah, so a lot of you may be skeptical. Why even like bother to work on teamwork? Why not just work on like, I don't know, hard skills like tech? So here, I'll start you off with some of the people I respect. Steve Jobs often has great quotes on teamwork, and one of his is that great things in business are never done by one person. They're always done by a team of people. And one of my favorite basketball players of all time, Michael Jordan, he says that talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. So yeah, a lot of leaders of the world kind of already know this. There's loads of stats and studies that I can pull out, but I will just focus on one of these, the one in the top right, that says that when people look at organizational change, so this is when a company goes through things like digital transformation, for example, a lot of the studies, like 131 of them, show that team development interventions are the ones that have the largest effect on financial performance. So if you think about it, it's not even things like retraining people into new skills or hiring and firing people or changing the composition of the teams. It's literally just focusing on team development that gives you the largest financial performance. So that's something to think about. That's why teams are important. Here's some more practical examples. Here in the NHS, there was a study that if more of the staff were to be pulled from not doing individual work but being part of a team, so they had some shared objectives, etc., that 5,000 fewer deaths would happen per year. So that's quite significant. And then lastly, if you end up flying a lot, you should ask your flight crew if they are new to working together on that flight, because there's often a high chance that there's going to be some accident. I don't mean major, of course, when a flight crew works together for the first time. So that shows you that there's something there in teams kind of working well together and teamwork being important. Just to give you a bit of a macro picture, just where we are kind of in the kind of grand evolution of how corporates work. So we're kind of moving and inching towards this model where a lot of the companies are gonna work in this network of teams way. So, if you look at all the cool tech companies like Netflix and Google and Facebook and Amazon, so everyone wants to be like them. And what they really do is they put teams and team leaders at the heart of things. Now, this is very different to how things used to work. So even like, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, you had kind of the idea that people are kings, not teams, so individual people. And leadership should kind of help those people. But then even before that, you had the classical hierarchical models of like executives being kings and, corporations being kings, and you had kind of management by objectives, etc. So everyone's kind of moving more towards this flatter structure, more teams that kind of come and go, etc. So because of that, they want to empower teams and give them some tools to self-manage and self-coach. So yeah, that's kind of the macro in a nutshell. However, teamwork is very hard. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that in a half an hour webinar, I could try and improve all of your teamwork issues and try and teach you everything there is about teamwork. It's a broad topic. Certainly there's some key pointers that I hope you can get out of today that will at least make you think a little bit about teamwork and why you should spend just as much, or if not more time on that than you do on skills. So I'm going to start with some practical tips on teamwork. Just before that, I'm just going to check, is everything still working fine? I think it is. All right, I'm just going to go back to full screen. Some practical tips on teamwork. So first things first, it would be good to kind of define what a team is. So a team is usually a small number of people, and it's usually no more than 12 with complementary skills and shared objectives. Jeff Bezos often has this rule, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, that if you can't have 2 pizzas to feed a team, it's not a team anymore. And the reason this is important is because it's often not what is in an HR system or in the org chart. So, in an HR system, you might often find something like tech team or this department, and people think that's a team, but it's not a team. It's just a collection of people that don't actually work together day to day. So, a question for you to ponder maybe as you are watching this is, how many teams are you actually in, if you think about it? Not official teams that are on paper, but unofficial teams. You could be in a short project team that's looking at some particular very short initiative. You might be in a big product team, for example, etc. But you might also be in a kind of team of tech people interested in a certain technology. So you just get together regularly and your mission is to kind of educate yourselves on that technology. So there's different teams that people are often in at work that are not actually on paper teams. So yeah, teamwork 101. If you do these things, you're 80% there. So yeah, having kind of spoken to most of the high-profile team coaches and seen the work and read all there is to read about teamwork and team coaching, if you kind of do just these things, you are basically 80% there. They all, in different ways, often say these things. There's loads more to teamwork, but just for the purpose of this, if you do just this, you'll be fine. Basically, that's the message. So we've kind of split it into two groups. One is teams should create solid team foundations. And by that, we mean they should have a team purpose, have shared goals, and have agreed some behaviors, and I'll go into what those are. But also they should have good habits, things like retrospectives, which probably a lot of you have heard about, and regular one-on-ones. So yeah, if you could do all this as a team and do it regularly and look at it regularly, then you'll be just fine. At least that's what the experts say. So let's delve a little bit deeper into each one of those. So foundations. First one is agreed team behaviors. So why is this important? It's quite important for a group of people to actually agree some ground rules of how they work together, and this will be very different for different teams. So, for example, in one team, you might have all agreed that, it's okay to, turn up to meetings 5 minutes late because you all want to do that. Yeah, that's one example. Or in the right, I have an example where, we've agreed that we want to make time to celebrate the wins. And this is quite important because often when new people join a team, for example, it takes them a while to understand what are the kind of what is the ways that this team behaves. But the most important reason why it's important is because you can then call each other when it doesn't happen. So if you have all together agreed, for example, that you want to make time to celebrate wins, and you've had let's say you're working on a digital product and you've released a new feature and it's kind of landed quite well, if you've never stopped, and actually to celebrate the fact that that went well, someone in the team should say, hey guys, we have all agreed that this is an important behavior for our team that we should celebrate, let's celebrate. So that's why these things are quite important. They kind of give you ground rules of how you all want to work together. So a practical way that you could do this, there are many ways, you can Google them, but this is just a very quick one. If you could just, your team, if you get your team in a room, and basically ask everyone in the team, using maybe some Post-its, to write things like, what would be the worst way that this team could behave for me to not like working in this team? And everyone will have something different. So here I have an example, someone might write something like, we never help each other out when someone is stuck. So that could be the worst way for me for this team to behave. I would hate to be in the team that's like that. Hey guys, could someone, I feel like someone's not muted, so I'm hearing a lot of car noise or something. It'd be good if you could mute. But yeah, so if someone wrote this as a statement, and hopefully enough other people wrote their own versions, you could then kind of group them into similar themes. And then perhaps, one of the behaviors that the team could come up with is that when someone says they're stuck, we prioritize helping them over our own work. And the key with that being is that, okay, you all agree that this is very important for you as a team. So for example, if there is a team meeting or a stand-up or something where someone says, hey guys, I'm really stuck on this thing, and no one puts their hand up and says, I'm going to help you with this, then it should be okay for someone in the team to be like, hey, this is one of our behaviors. Someone needs to help this person, who is going to be. So yeah, that's why these things are quite important and quite useful. And also, if you're a new joiner, you can quickly understand, what's the dynamic of this team if you have a bunch of these statements that you could kind of easily see. So yeah, I would kind of, if you don't have some of these, I would, challenge you to try and think of some of these for your teams together, obviously. Next team foundation. It's to write down your team purpose. So a lot of teams, surprisingly, we find in big and very good companies, often don't actually know why they exist as a team, which sounds silly, but often people don't even stop to kind of ask themselves, why do we do what we do? A lot of people on teams might say, well, actually, I do know, but what they think is the reason that the team exists for is totally different to what their teammates think is the reason that they exist for. In fact, you can try this yourself. If you work in teams, you could kind of go back to, when you go back to your desk, you can kind of ask two different people the same question, why does this team exist? And you'll probably get slightly different answers. So that alone will show you that a lot of people kind of don't even have the same idea of what the team does. The important thing here is to have a purpose that's actually meaningful to that team and not something very bland, like we make software or we sell, we want to make money. Loads of teams make software. Why do you specifically make software, for example? So, a practical way that you could do it. So again, you can get people together in a room, and it's a 4-step process that we often advocate, but again, there are others. But yeah, so this is a simple process. You kind of split it into 4. You start with, everyone should kind of write down what they think the team does or deliver. So an example I have here is that perhaps everyone writes that we deliver financial reports. And often at this stage, you'll find that there's some variations. One person might say, we deliver financial reports. The other person says, we do accounting. The last person says, we try to make sure that no one breaks the law when it comes to our accounting, etc. But then the key is to agree, okay, what is it actually that we do that we kind of feel passionate about? So perhaps it's we deliver financial reports, for example. And then the next stage is, who do we do it for? So, we should know kind of who the end customer and user of your team's outputs is. So in this example, I've put down that a team perhaps agreed that it's for young investors. It's not perhaps for everyone. And lastly, the most important one is, why do we do it? So, what a team does should make some sort of difference to someone. So it's always important for a team to know why they do what they do. And in this case is, they do the thing for young investors so that those investors can make confident decisions. And therefore, you kind of craft it into a purpose statement that says something along the lines of, we deliver financial reports for young investors so that they can make confident decisions. Now, this is very useful because suddenly, you as a team have hopefully agreed this, and then it's more meaningful to you than just we do accounting. But also it's good because it can help you in decision making. So, if suddenly someone says that you should do something totally different, like, I don't know, sell ice cream, you're like, well, no, this team is about delivering financial reports. We're not going to be selling ice cream, for example. It also straight away gives a very clear picture to any other teams in the company or new joiners, again, like what specifically does this team care about? And hopefully this team shouldn't be doing any work that's not towards this mission. And the best teams actually have very clear success metrics so that they know if young investors, for example, are or aren't making confident decisions. They can actually measure if they're having impact towards their purpose. So yeah, we find that most teams can do this, from operations to comms to tech. And often when they do, they have such a good discussion and they kind of have different viewpoints that we get a lot of feedback saying it was great that we even spent some time to just talk about our purpose. So yeah, highly recommend it. And then the last one is to have some team goals. So by this, I don't mean individual goals. I mean, like, as a group, what is our goal that we as a group want to achieve? The key here is to just kind of pick. There's loads of methodologies, whether it's OKRs or SMART. I don't know if how many people heard, but hopefully most of you have heard about at least one of these. But yeah, the main thing is to not overthink it. And the other one is not just let them be set by the manager, because the key with goals is that the whole team needs to buy into them and actually agree them, rather than someone just telling the team exactly what the goal is. I know that's often hard in a lot of the organizations, but that's to where most of the kind of advanced companies are moving to. This kind of like a higher level company goal, but then teams can come up with their own goals. It's also very important to discuss what you're not going to do. A lot of teams forget this. So, if you say, for example, here, we're going to increase the number of targeted leads. This is, I guess, a sales team. And they have some metrics, like they want to double demo calls, etc. I guess what they should also say is, we're not going to focus on doing partnerships, for example, because then if you have some incoming lead or there's an idea that's to do with a partnership, we can say, hey, we've decided not to do that because it would distract us from the actual goal we want to achieve. So that's often the hard part. People get distracted day to day by other things. So yeah, there's a challenge for you. For example, that last question I have on the slide is, if you know what your team goal is, how much of your time do you spend on that team goal? Often you'll find people don't spend any time towards the team goal. They spend it in loads of other activities, which is why little progress is made on certain initiatives. So yeah, that's team goals. And yeah, which moves me on to the next section, which is team habits. So those were kind of foundations, things that teams should all have in place and try and review regularly. But yeah, team habits is the other important aspect of it. And often, if you work in an agile team, you probably do some of this already. So the key one is retrospectives, especially for non-agile teams. All the research shows that if you were to do one thing as a team, do this. The key is making retrospectives good and work for your team. From cadence to what you actually do in a retrospective, it should all lead to you improving as a team and changing how you work. So obviously, a classic one is a tech-based retrospective, which often goes along the lines of something we can improve, or a learning we want to share, or a thing we want to celebrate. But there's many formats, and the key is just for a team to pick one and try and improve as a team. If you feel that your retrospective isn't working for you, or it's very boring and operational, then that's already a cue that something needs to change. So I challenge you in your next retrospective to be like, hey guys, this is quite boring, and it doesn't work for us. We've not actually improved as a team by having these. We should probably change how we do them. So yeah, that's kind of retrospectives. Often people think they're a waste of time. You'll find people say, well, why do we want to spend an hour every couple of weeks talking about teamwork when we could spend that hour just doing work? So here there's a study done by Wipro, who they're a large outsourcing company in India. They they split new trainees, new graduates that they get to come onto their company into two groups. In one group, they put teams, and they told them that at the end of each day, they should each team in that group should kind of reflect for 15 minutes and then spend 5 minutes just sharing learnings and stuff that happened that day in their training and how they could improve tomorrow. And then another group, the teams in that group, they all were just told to work more for that time. So while the other teams were just doing a reflection, teams in Group B were just told, oh, you can just work extra for 20 minutes while they're doing that. And you'd think that perhaps teams that were just working rather than talking about stuff would actually end up doing more stuff. But actually, it turns out that teams in Group A outperformed those in B by 25%. Yet they spent less time working. So it is very important to reflect as a team, because that's how you improve as a team. And then the last habit is one-on-ones. It's again very basic, but in all the research and from our experience with team coaches, they say having one-on-ones is one of the most important things teams can do. This is not just with team leads, so they're very good at building trust and alignment. So you should have one-on-ones with people on your team that are not just your team lead, because it does help you kind of build a relationship, understand them better. And yeah, some of the pitfalls people have in one-on-ones is they often use them just for status updates, which is quite boring. You can do that with other means. You can, do Slacks or email, etc. The best one-on-ones are ones where both sides contribute to an agenda, and it's usually things around, some feedback or tough conversations, or even just some personal things you want to share, good or bad, etc. So yeah, having two-way conversations where it's not just kind of a top-down manager-led is very important in a team. So yeah, how often? I'm curious if you think in your heads, how often do you have one-on-ones with your team lead, and do you contribute to the agenda? If not, then you should tell them, hey, this is a meeting where we both need to contribute to what's going to be talked about. So yeah, I would challenge you to do that. And also, how often do you have one-on-ones with others on your team? It's often overlooked, but some of the research shows that when you have equal number of one-on-ones in a team, that team performs far better. So yeah, I would again say, even if it's just a coffee, have more one-on-ones. So yeah, I'll close with some kind of challenges to all of you. The first one to team leads, if your teams haven't done any of this or don't do this regularly, pick one. Doesn't matter whether it's setting your purpose or agreeing some team behaviors, and just try and do it. Just try and get your team to have that conversation. You'll find that good things happen. And team members, you should challenge your teams. If you're in a team that you don't know why the team exists, ask the team why they think they exist, or ask the team lead to kind of try and figure out what the purpose is. Again, you'll find that it will help the team kind of gel and be a better team afterwards. And then lastly, company leaders, as companies are moving kind of to this team of teams models, there's often kind of the fear that companies lose control, but you'll see that companies like Netflix, for example, who operate in this very flat structure, they do manage to strike the right balance. They give kind of high-level goals, but then let teams figure things out for themselves. So they give lots of trust to teams. So I would say, trust your teams and let them come up with their own goals, their own processes, and they'll do quite well. They'll learn from their mistakes, but they'll do quite well. So yeah, that's all kind of I had for you today. I know it's been kind of a quick blast, but it gives you hopefully a flavor of teamwork and why it's important. So yeah, I'd love to hear any questions, or if you want to ask them now, you can always email me, especially if you have challenges with teamwork, etc.
Thank you, Nick. It was a really exciting webinar. I think because I had to stop that other broadcast and start different Oliver, we don't really have new people joining in. But what I'm going to do when I'm emailing everybody the new webinar so they can watch it, I'll add your email address if that's okay, so you can send the questions. Did you hear me? Can you hear me?
I'm just struggling to understand you. Sorry. Are you saying there's questions? There's no questions.
Oh, okay. So for now, there's no questions.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I'm going to be sending out like an email to everybody who actually sent in the emails to attend this webinar. So I was asking if I could send them your email address in case they had questions, or should I gather the questions and send them to you?
You can, however you want. I don't mind.
Okay.
If people send me directly, it's fine.
Okay. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry for the hassle at the beginning.
Oh, no worries.
Thank you so much. And bye. Do have a great day.
Cool. Thank you. And you hope you have a good day too. Bye-bye.
Bye.